Avtar Meher Baba Ki Jai. So let's start with reading one of the messages. So we can start with seven realities. Mamaji, you want to read?
Yes,
Sure, please.
Avatar Meher Baba Ki Jai. The seven realities: existence, love, sacrifice, renunciation, knowledge, control, and surrender. I give no importance to creed, dogma, caste, or the performance of religious ceremonies and rites, but to the understanding of the following. The only real existence is that of one and only God, who is the self in every finite self. The only real love is the love for this infinity God, which arouses an intense longing to see, know, and become one with its truth, God. The only real sacrifice is that in which, in pursuance of this love, all things, body, mind, position, welfare, and even life itself are sacrificed. The only renunciation is that which abandons, even in the midst of worldly duties, all selfish thoughts and desires. The only real knowledge is the knowledge that God is the inner dweller in good people and in so called bad, in saint and in so called sinner. This knowledge requires you to help all equally as circumstances demand, without expectation of reward. When compelled to take part in a dispute, to act without the slightest trace of enmity or hatred, to try to make others happy with brotherly or sisterly feeling for each one, and to harm no one in thought, word, or deed, not even those who harm you. The only real control is the discipline of the senses to abstain from indulgence in low desires, which alone ensures absolute purity of character. The only real surrender is that in which poise is undisturbed by any adverse circumstance, and the individual, amidst every kind of hardship, is resigned with the perfect calm to the will of God. Star Meher Baba Ki Jai.
Avtar Meher Baba Ki Jai. I think I'm again reminded about the great possibilities and meanings and depth that exists in the first reality,
Yes,
existence. So I know you have dived more deeper into that than me. But yes, I think along with that, there is one more uh, theory or one more discussion in the Baba circles, right? So, what is Satchit Anand? Is it is it is it no, knowledge, power, bliss? Is it that trinity? So everything is a trinity, right? The GSM,
yes,
the
yes, yes, yes,
Satchidanand, knowledge, power, bliss, and the three words, right? The
yes.
three bodies, the three words, and the three aspects, knowledge, power, bliss. So is Sat. So what's the meaning of Sat in Satchitanand in Baba's understanding, or rather in Baba's cosmology? Is something that we have to think more.
Yes,
It's open for debate, but that's another long-term homework. I have many
yes,
such
yes, yes,
long-term
yes.
homeworks in our head.
Yes, yes.
Yeah. So very good morning to everybody. Ashokji, you seem to have a unstable connection. You came back and in and out for two, three times. I hope things are better now.
I can see the screen. Yes.
Yeah, good. Okay. So, if you recollect, we were almost at the end of state four, and we were going to get into God as soul in the state of evolution. But as requested by Ashok ji, we wanted to do the gas states again, right?
Yes.
So, our marker is here, and let's just read those last couple of paragraphs, then get to evolution. Yeah. Atar Meher Baba Ki Jai. So this is the first medium, and this is the most subtlest form of gas. Okay, so that's what is described here. Let's dive in. This first medium, adopted by God in his state 4, God as embodied soul, is a first form which, although it is gross, yet it is so inconceivably, infinitely finite that it cannot even be considered as gross. It is so very infinitely shapeless and substanceless, matterless and formless that it cannot lead one even to imagine that it is gross. Yet, this form is the very first gross form that emerges simultaneously as if in three prongs, as the first three of the foremost seven gas like forms. If a description of these first three gas like forms could ever be attempted, they could only be described from the standpoint of density. The first having infinitely negligible density, then in the next stage, negligible density, and in the third stage as having the first traces of density. These first three forms have no evolution. The next three forms may come within the scope of our imagination and may be described as semi gaseous and semi material forms. Evolution begins with the fourth gas like form. And finally, there is the seventh gas like form of the series of seven foremost gas like forms, which is hydrogen, and which may be said to include the electron. It should be noted, oops, it should be noted well that the first six gas like gross forms bear no resemblance to the various gases such as hydrogen, nitrogen, and so forth. They are much, much finer, not subtler, than those with which the scientists of the age are well conversant. So the use of the word subtle has a footnote. The footnote reads, this is in no way to be connected with any form or object of the subtle world because these forms are solely of the gross world. So the reference to subtle is the opposite of the meaning of the word gross and closer to the word meaning of finer. So it's finer form, it's subtler, it's so on like that. I mean, and so on. So just to summarize the first seven gases, and then we can discuss and then proceed further. Firstly, there are three categories in the seven gases. First three, second three, and the seventh. The first three are um, to use Baba's phrase, infinitely finite and so difficult to even imagine and describe from a density perspective. And the first three don't have evolution. How gases evolve, I don't know. Just think about it. Think about maybe the push of consciousness moving that gaseous form to experience another gaseous form, right? That's what it would be. So the first three don't have evolution. The second three have evolution and become, I think we can use another word to understand this better. In our human ways, we can start to perceive these gases. So when you say they are almost indescribably less gross, less dense, you can't even describe, you can't perceive, right? So in the next three, maybe you can start perceiving them, right? They can be subject matter of research, can be seen in a lab, whatever. Finally, you have the electron appearing in the seventh, which is nothing but hydrogen. So that's the seven gases. Yeah. I think that's the way I would summarize this. Was this
Maybe,
reading? Yeah,
maybe the
please.
first three forms explained here, which are referred to as infinitely finite.
Uh-huh.
Nice expression. So maybe these can be the uh, what we call as waves, or I don't know how to call it in physics, what they say. So it is
Mhm.
beyond that stage. So what is the scientists have perceived is the energy waves of different wavelengths and frequencies and all that. So it may be beyond that, which
Mm.
is yet to be say understood in the scientific terminology or perception as such. The next three is the level of the say waves, which we have understood now and
Recognized.
recognized, and then the most finite amongst them, which is clearly understood, is the electron. And
Mm.
when we say hydrogen H2, uh, it is established the union of these gases into uh, a structured way. And this progress from the unknown to the known uh, leads us to the initiation of a, uh, evolution as such.
Mm.
So, which are ununderstandable forces joined together or mingled together, or whatever we may call that, they gradually become perceptible and start uniting with other elements like this, and then create, say, once again, nucleus and then a particle and like that, and then you get the whole cross sphere clearly manifesting. That is what the vision I get reading this.
Very good summary. I think that's good. Ashok ji, this is helpful.
That this is helpful, but it sort of gives an idea that how how the evolution takes place, and in the first three gases, they are very, if I can use the word, ephemeral, or they are not in the material world. It's beyond the material world, and as Mamaji said, beyond our perception.
So,
So
yeah, I think
it's very intriguing.
yes, yes. I think what's fascinating is I don't think anybody has described all of these in such great detail uh, from a scientific standpoint, obviously. But even from a spiritual standpoint, right? Nobody has dwelt as much in detail about the divine theme and evolution other than Baba. And this one is so specific in the scientific world that probably it will be a matter of research, and people will be able to correlate and identify these things as described by Baba, over the years.
Yes, yes, that's a
Yeah,
possibility. Mhm.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay, so let's dive into a little more grossness and see what happens in evolution as the gas moves on and becomes what else. So let's start state five. God as soul in the state of evolution. God as embodied soul now begins to become conscious and begins to know the creation, the nothingness, although his knowing of the creation at this stage is infinitely negligible. Even this most finite consciousness and this minutest knowing, however, creates more impressions, sanskaras, that cause the drop, soul, atma, or self, to leave or disassociate from the original first bubble form. Leaving the bubble is equivalent to a dropping off of or disassociating from the first form. Even after the form is dropped, the impressions gathered by the evolving consciousness of the soul do not vanish. These impressions remain associated with the evolved consciousness and cause the evolving consciousness of the soul to associate with another appropriate and superior bubble form. The soul is thus able to know or experience more of the creation through the second form. The angle of vision widens and the consciousness of knowing increases in proportion to the simultaneous evolution of form. With the evolution or growth in gross consciousness, the impressions, sanskaras, also increase and cause the soul to assume or associate with a still more complex gross form in accordance with the impressions retained by the consciousness when the second gross form is abandoned. In this way, the evolution of consciousness progresses for ages concurrently with the evolution of forms which help to experience and concurrently exhaust the impressions gathered until, after countless changes of forms through more concrete and successive stages of stones, metals, plants, worms, fishes, birds, and animals, the soul takes on the human form. In other words, the cycle of evolution of consciousness of soul continues evolving further and greater consciousness with the evolution of forms of higher and higher types, while experiencing and exhausting the impressions of the dissociated forms of the next lower type. Consequently, the evolution of consciousness of souls apparently tends the souls to identify themselves with and gather varied, innumerable impressions of higher and higher gross species of forms, unlimited in number in the gross world. The clean cut major forms with which the souls associate with every leap of greater and greater consciousness are in accordance with the leaps from stone to metal, from metal to plant, from plant to worm, from worm to fish, from fish to bird, from bird to animal, and ultimately the last and seventh leap is from the animal to human form. It is very important to understand that the process of evolution of consciousness concerns the evolution of bubbles or forms only and not the drops or the souls. Souls remain as indivisible and infinite as the unlimited ocean, Paramatma. From the beginning until the end of evolution of consciousness, which terminates with the completion of evolution of form. So this is, I'll pause here. So you gather samskaras, you change from bubble to bubble. Each time you change from bubble to bubble, the sanskaras that you gather are more, and I would say more and more complex as well. Form also gets more and more complex, more and more sophisticated, and you go through 7 leaps in terms of kingdoms. But all this is happening with the soul retaining its indivisible and infinite nature. But the bubbles are the one that are finite, right? Any comments before we continue? Okay, only through this evolution of form does the consciousness of
No,
ignorance.
I was
Yeah,
muted.
sure.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
At this
I know
stage,
this.
I
Please go
have
ahead.
two things cropping up in mind to understand
Sure.
clarity. So here, there is a parallel development of the forms with the traversing of this soul from form to form. Learned what is learned earlier is expressed more vividly in the next form, and then tries to ward off that expression, and then in the process gets new expressions. This is what is happening. But this seems to show that there are two parallel. One is the journey of the soul, the other one is the emergence of form. Are they unitary or two separate streams of activities? This is a question which comes up here. So, because as it is explained here, we are concentrating on the movement of the soul and development of increasing consciousness of the soul. And it
Right.
traverses through the different forms. So, if you backdrop this with the scientific knowledge of how the forms have evolved, so was this a parallel development? And what is the force which makes this development happen in the say, gross world developing and the traverse of the soul through this uh, development? Or is the soul influencing the development of the gross world? That is one
Yeah.
question which arises here for my.
Yeah, I think this is a very deep question.
Uh,
So, the nature and the attributes of the soul remain unchanged,
yes,
and the evolution of form is subservient. And Baba says this very clearly, multiple places. The dominant force, and I think I'll go back to that beautiful booklet which introduced you to Baba. So
uh,
the expression is the advancing life stream, right?
yes,
The advancing life stream, and if you notice the focus of that book, it suggests that there is a reason and purpose in evolution, and that is to go to higher and higher forms of consciousness. Why? To reach God.
yes,
And that is, I dare say, for want of another word, it's an unconscious or latent and infinitely capable power that is pushing all of this,
yes,
right? That process is what is pushing us from bubble to bubble to bubble to bubble, and that is that is independent of bubble. That
yes,
that process and the power and the nature of the soul is independent. The dependent part is evolution, and that is dependent on the speed, nature, and the number of bubbles that you go through. The speed through which you go through is based on each drop's sanskaras,
uh,
right? That's my understanding. So, again, this is open for commentary, but this is what I take away as my understanding. So, the evolution of form is absolutely, I mean, like Baba says, Darwin was absolutely right and he was on the right path, but he left it at, if you look at the scientific domain says that evolution is to ensure superiority and survival of the fittest, right? So basically, genes evolve to survive and
yes,
propagate and become better and more sophisticated. Baba agrees on the second part, which is it gets more and more sophisticated. But what Darwin missed, according to Baba, is the fact that this evolution is motivated by a deeper aspect, and that is of consciousness. So, consciousness and the evolution of consciousness results in the evolution of form or pushes for evolution of form. So, what is evolving is the stone consciousness, which is nothing, next to nothing, almost zero, coming to the most sophisticated form of human. But that thread has started from the gas, the
Yes.
thread of having to push forward to improve the sophistication of consciousness, because God has to go through this to get the full experience of himself.
Yes, in this concept, there is only a unitary development. So that is the spark of consciousness trying to enlarge or manifest in different ways to understand the capabilities of consciousness. And then the purpose of the consciousness is to reach Godhood. That is the
Correct.
ultimate state of consciousness, which is perfect in human beings, as Baba says. So, what all happens in this process is only stepping stones developed for this. So, at each level, we increase our consciousness or manifest more better, and then in that process, garbage also sticks to us. And this removal of garbage happens as well as the development of new desires of higher, uh, we can't say it as desires because it's the wrong term, the aspiration of getting to a higher level of consciousness. So in that, this becomes unitary. What I told was these two
Yeah,
different parallel streams, but they have to be
it's so
a single
unitary. Yes.
unitary meaning for this. I think that is the way we have to understand.
Yeah, beautiful. Correct. Okay, let's go back and continue. So we read this one. Yeah. Only through this, only through this evolution of form does the consciousness of ignorance or the knowing of creation increase step by step due to varied impressions, and only in the human form can the individualized soul, Atma, eventually realize the oversoul or Paramatma. As the soul is infinite, the consciousness of the soul must also become infinite. And because consciousness can become infinite only in the human form is therefore the final stage of evolution of form. So I'm reminded of something that we have to keep in mind. If you recollect, Kama keeps saying that whenever we encounter the word soul, let's say in discourses or uh, God speaks, you have to actually see in your mind, think of consciousness of the soul, right? So, and that's uh, the proof for that is this statement, right? So, as the soul is infinite, the consciousness of the soul must also become infinite, and so the soul is unimpacted by all the processes that we are discussing right through the states of God, and in fact right through God speaks and discourses. But the consciousness of the soul is the only thing that changes. So that's just a little reminder on semantics. Yeah.
That is one of the reasons why I feel existence is the primary thing. Soul or God is unitary. So the
Mm.
consciousness of that whatever entity uh, keeps increasing and then reaches a stage where it becomes consciousness and the soul become sort of unitary. that is realization. And all the vibrations you go through in between are all stages of development, and then acquiring new capability, and then also the unnecessary baggage with that, and then trying to get rid of this baggage, get new levels of consciousness. So this process keeps on happening, and then ultimately you clear out all your baggage, and then that state is the prime state of the soul, with the is all encompassing capability of the consciousness of that soul. So there you can almost say soul and consciousness are same.
At the final stage.
Yes,
Correct. Yeah. So that is the uh, purpose and final goal. And at that point, the consciousness of the soul has reached the soul state
yes,
or over soul state. We use another term. Okay, let's continue. The soul has to pass through 8,400,084 lakhs human forms after it has once commenced to reincarnate in the human form until it has attained God realization. The pre human forms through which it has to pass before it can incarnate in the human form are innumerable. Strictly speaking, there is only one form, the human form, which is latent in all of the previous forms. The mineral, the plant, and the animal forms actually contain the human form in its latent state, and this is gradually and increasingly manifested until it is at last completely expressed as a human being in a human body. So I'm reminded of the rag doll, right?
mm,
More than the rag doll, the diagram in creation and its causes. I
yes,
hope
yes.
I can get to
That's
it.
that is the diagram.
Yeah, I'll try to get it in a minute. Anybody has it? You can bring it up as well.
No, I was trying to search that, and then I thought I had lost it. So I stopped.
No, no, it's there in Telegram. It's there in Telegram. It's just
Okay.
has to be found.
The curly form, the supine form, and then
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
the
Exactly. Yeah, I found it. Share, airdrop. One second, I'm just getting it. Yeah.
yeah.
So, so God was always in, um, or let's say, to use the biblical expression, the biblical expression is God made himself, I mean, he made man in the likeness of himself, right? So the end state and the beginning state is of the human form, but it takes on all these steps and various forms, but in it, the latent human form is always there. So this is what I think we were all reminded of this diagram.
Yes.
By the way, it is in like I said in Telegram. It's dated 1/7/23, January 7, 23. Okay, so let's continue. Before the human form becomes completely manifested in a human body, such as a man or a woman, the latent human form makes a series of partial turns. In the crystalline rock state, such as granite, the latent human form is completely upside down, and it's almost so in the plant state as well. As the forms progress or evolve, the axis of the body rotates slowly so that it becomes more and more horizontal. And when we reach higher vertebrates, we find the head rising up more and more as the axis of the body approaches the vertical. In men and women, we find the human form completely expressed and completely vertical. The details of this evolution of form are extremely complex. There are, for example, certain species of stone, metal, plant, and animal that have what Meher Baba described as a special seat in evolution. These key species of forms are mostly those that are milestones on the evolutionary road, and they mark the first and the last of a certain general class of species of forms. For example, the first species of bird form to follow the last species of fish form, and the first species of the animal form to follow the last species of the bird form have a special C significance in evolution. Meher Baba tells us that this whole theme has been explained down to the last detail in his own book that is still to be handed over to the world. The book has a footnote. The book referred to should not be confused with this publication. Meher Baba has authored an additional work which might be published later. That's the editor's remark. Just let's dwell on that diagram for a minute. Uh, uh, yeah, so it's curled up as almost a round.
Uh,
It's flat. Yeah,
Go ahead. Go ahead.
yeah, it's flat on the body, but you see it's facing downward. So the brown, the coloration here is the fact that the head is the root. So the
Yes.
root is inside, right?
Yes.
So then you have the worm, which is can be under the ground or over the ground, but it is again flat but facing up. The fish, on the other hand, is facing down and it can be inside water. Then you have the quadruped, the animal, and then you have the bird, but the wings are nothing but the arms that the legs act as the legs. I mean the basically the legs of the bird, and the wings take on the hand. The hands become equivalent to the wings. The animal is continuing to be in seated position, but it has paws and legs, right? And then as you move towards the human form, you become slightly vertical. So if you see the point Baba made just in the last paragraph, the vertical stature and standing of the evolutionary process happens only in the last two stages, literally, right? So you become partially vertical as a monkey and pre-human states, and then fully vertical in the human form. till that you're in either one of the supine, to use another expression, right? Yes, Nawaji, you were saying something.
That's here the gradual uplifting of the head and neck, and then it becoming the whole body becoming erect is the passage from the stone stage onwards. So that is the progress. The one aspect which strikes me here is the Kundalini Shastra. What is referred to?
Okay.
So the movement of from the Mooladhara to the upper level. So that may be some significance related to this. Our explanation of this concept is uh, shown in that methodology by maybe that uh, the travel of consciousness from the Mooladhara upward and
Mm.
reaching the pinnacle and then going out of the body on top from the head. That is can be imagined with this diagram also, I think.
Yeah, that's interesting. But
Uh,
at a minimum, what we can also assume to understand the chakras is, so let's say if you assume that the consciousness and the evolution of consciousness always has energy and the energy. So Kundalini is what? Energy and flow of consciousness in a level, right? At a level.
mm,
So if you take that in the more rudimentary forms, probably it is so latent and inexpressible simply because of the form itself. So
yes,
if in a stone, in now let's say we just take it as face value, it's rolled up, right? So
yes,
where are the six chakras? The six
this
chakras
is
are all
uh,
flat. The six chakras are reverse, right?
mm,
And so on and so forth. So basically, to even get the energy and the kundalini is moving, you need to get to the posture, and
yes,
so which again says that the reward of evolution is the human form, which is the pinnacle of form, and there's no evolution after that. And in that, the gift you get is the ability to move up further into involution. And involution is nothing but your kundalini. I mean, parallel, a broad parallel is the kundalini rising
yes,
or in the involution stage, right? That's a good way of understanding that concept, or accommodating that concept in
yes, yes.
Baba's cosmology.
And actually, in the human form,
Hmm.
with all the impressions that we have all
Hmm.
the traits of all the different stages of development. And we keep studying those things and then ultimately reach a stage that is the say Mooladhara is actually referred to as the basic instinct stage.
Instinct, yes,
That is
correct.
that moment we can parallelly put all these things together with this sort of understanding.
Yes,
So as
perfect.
we move from instinct to the, say, as we explained or understood
Yesterday,
yesterday, so the
correct,
other chakras are important as we progress from these levels to the higher levels.
correct,
And
very
the
correct,
travel, lastly, the travel beyond the head, that can be the subtle world.
correct. Or
That
even the mental world, subtle plus
mental,
mental world.
yes,
Yeah,
yes, yes.
yeah, yeah.
So that's
True.
how I imagine this, all these things, how to put them together to understand a unitary way of things here.
So when you're ready, just put the chakras also here, please.
Okay.
This is our master map. So
Yes.
then we'll put it in the map finally.
Yeah.
Okay, let's continue.
Okay.
Yeah. So now we have seen the evolution of the soul. Just as there is evolution of consciousness and evolution of forms, so also there is evolution of the worlds. The evolved consciousness of the soul, identifying the soul with evolved forms, gets more and more impressioned. And in order to exhaust these impressions, it consistently finds its field of expression, and it experiences these impressions on the earth, which is also evolving concurrently with other worlds in accordance with the progressive evolution of the entire cosmic creation. So, just dwell on this paragraph for a minute.
Yes,
We are a bubble, and we have been through a process, and we have reached today where we are, right? Wherever you're in Bangalore, you're in Pune, we are in our own worlds, right? Now, the point Baba is making here is that the world around us is also evolving, right? So it's actually metaphysically very complex in the sense that the, around you have stones, around you have animals, around you have worms, around you have other souls, other drop souls in their journey. But it that is also evolving in parallel with you, and it's getting more and more sophisticated, right? That's anyway. Let's continue more, and then maybe we will understand what is the progressive evolution of the worlds. So Baba says the other worlds are also progressively evolving. During the course of evolution of consciousness of the soul, while consciously identifying itself with varied, finite, gross forms, was also simultaneously, though unconsciously, identifying itself with its finite subtle form and its finite mental form, which associated with the soul in compact, homogeneous, unconscious association throughout the course of evolution of consciousness, right from the first urge. Very important point. Your connection to the subtle body and the mental body is unconscious right from the stone stage, or let's say the gaseous stage. Right from that stage, you are there, but you're not aware of it. We are, as we speak, we are also doing the same. Continuing, during the whole course of the evolution of consciousness, while the soul frequently and consciously disassociates itself from the finite gross forms which act as media to experience and exhaust the impressions while evolving greater and greater consciousness, the soul never disassociates itself consciously or unconsciously from its finite subtle form and finite mental form. So actually, we can underline this whole thing.
yes, yes,
Yeah. So so you're always connected to your subtle and mental form, uh, and you cannot disassociate. Continuing. On the contrary, when the soul disassociates its identification with any one medium of finite gross form, it is the unconscious association of the soul with its subtle form that fortifies the soul, then without any gross medium, with finite energy, the driving force, to tend the consciousness of the soul towards identifying itself with another form, that is the next medium of the next finite gross form, to experience the impressions of the last disassociated finite gross form, retained and reflected by the finite mental form of the soul, which is also in unconscious association with the soul. So let's see what is being said here. So the word Baba is using is fortifies. So subtle
yes,
world fortifies the soul, I mean, the subtle body association, right? Uh, Subtle form and the next medium to experience the impressions written reference. Okay. So as we know, impressions are always retained and reflected. So I'll just say impressions of the last definite clause form. I'll just say impressions. That's enough. Are retained and reflected by the finite mental form. I hope you agree with my highlighting, because what we are
Yes,
trying to understand here is what are the moving parts. So
yes,
when you move from one soul to the other in evolution, what is unconsciously happening is this:
yes,
the subtle form fortifies the soul and gives it the direction and push and makes the next decision possible. This is, in other words, the period of the heaven or hell state between forms. And there, the subtle body is the one holding it together. And driven by what the mental body, which is the receptacle of impressions, driven by what it contains, the subtle body with the fortification helps the soul to identify the next association of gross form that it deserves. Right? So I think this is what this paragraph is. Okay, let's continue. It is only natural that together with the evolution of greater and greater consciousness of the soul, the evolution of the finite, subtle form of the soul also takes place to fortify the soul with greater finite energy to tend the consciousness of the more and more gross conscious soul to identify itself with higher and higher types of finite gross forms evolved by the impressions of the last lower and finite gross form. So, what is the association in the three aspects? What is the associated aspect with subtle form? Subtle form is associated with energy, which is
energy,
associated with power,
power.
right? So if you take the knowledge, power, bliss concept, you associate it with GSM. Subtle is connected to power, right? Which is connected to energy. And it's fair to, I mean, it's also linked in understanding, right? So, what is happening is there is an evolution of greater and greater consciousness of the soul, and it fortifies the soul with greater energy, greater finite energy to tend the soul to identify itself with the higher and higher types. So that's all uh, is happening in this stage, right? Similarly, I'm continuing reading now. Similarly, the evolution of the finite mental form of the soul also takes place simultaneously to accommodate, retain, and reflect the increasingly innumerable varied impressions gained and gathered by the evolution of greater and greater consciousness of the soul. So, evolution of finite mental form also takes place simultaneously. Thus, it is that only in a human form are the subtle body and the mental body fully developed. So, the bodies are completely developed and ready. Hence, the soul, associating itself consciously with human form, is to speak fully equipped with gross body, subtle body, and mental body in human form, together with the full consciousness of the gross gained in the human form. I repeat, hence, the soul, associating itself consciously with human form, is, so to speak, fully equipped with gross body, subtle body, and mental body in human form, together with the full consciousness of the gross gained in the human form. The last paragraph underlines the fact that the full maximum possible consciousness is reached and experienced in the gross body of the human form, but the full equipment of subtle body and uh, mental body are also ready and available unconsciously.
And
Nevertheless, yeah,
uh, the other point is the last part of the sentence. Together with the full consciousness of the gross gained in the human form. So that means we are conscious of the gross totally, and we are not conscious of the subtle and mental totally. So those
correct.
developments happen in the involution process.
Exactly, exactly,
That's the point
exactly.
to be clearly understood here.
Correct, correct. So, what though the equipment are completely ready, all three, you are conscious and operating only at the level of the gross, which is fully reached at the evolution stage. Perfect. So, when we go to state six, you will understand. We will see how we unlock
Yes,
subtle and mental
element.
bodies.
Yes.
Nevertheless, although the soul has gained full consciousness in human form and so experiences the gross world, yet the gross conscious human soul is unconscious of the subtle body. I repeat, I got distracted. I got a.
Uh-huh.
Uh, nevertheless, nevertheless, one second, let me put that in not disturb mode. Yeah, I repeat. Nevertheless, although the soul has gained full consciousness in human form and so experiences the gross world, yet the gross conscious human soul is unconscious of the subtle body and therefore cannot experience the subtle world. The gross conscious human soul is also unconscious of the mental body and therefore cannot experience the mental world. Right? So, just what we
Yes.
were inferring in the previous paragraph, Baba is explicitly mentioning that. Is unconscious of the subtle body. We can actually underline all of this. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Okay. I think we can go to the next state.
Yes.
Any comments before we go there, Ashok ji?
Sanjay Nigam has also joined. I didn't know.
Oh, okay.
When did he join?
Yeah, I didn't observe that as well. Yeah.
Jai Baba, everyone. Jai Baba.
Jai Baba, Jai Baba.
Jai Baba. I was reading something yes last evening.
Mhm.
Once we finish, I'll like to read a page from another
Sure.
book. Yeah.
So,
Yes.
sure, sure, sure.
Once we finish, yeah.
So
Jai Baba.
let's then get to state six, God as human soul in the state of reincarnation, right? Um, so there's an asterisk on the title. So let's go first to see that. So the reference is to discourses, pages 301 to 338. There are, I think, 6 parts or 8 parts of reincarnation and karma. So the reference is to read that. We will see if there is any specific portions that we need to go to. We will see how it goes. Yeah, let's first read stage 6 in the book. The most finite first impression of the first urge gave to the infinite unconsciousness of the unconscious soul the most finite first consciousness. Wow.
Mhm.
Let me read it again. Simple but very poetic, let's say. The most finite first impression of the first urge gave to the infinite unconsciousness of the unconscious soul, the most finite first consciousness. Gradually, varied and innumerable impressions experienced through varied and innumerable cross media gained greater and greater consciousness of the finite gross world for the soul, and eventually the evolution of consciousness was complete when the consciousness of the soul identified itself with the most first human form. Therefore, the soul, having now gained full consciousness in human form, does not need any more or any other higher forms to evolve consciousness. The consciousness gradually gained in the process of evolution is full and complete in the human form. Let's mark that out. Sorry. Let's mark that out. Though the soul in this state has gained. Yeah.
With this paragraph, what is very clear or shown is that the soul is always complete in consciousness, but it is initially totally unconscious and gradually becomes conscious of these different levels of consciousness and reaches the maximum or the pinnacle in the human form. That is what is the meaning of this. So the initial urge, the consciousness is complete itself, but it is unconscious, not aware of its capabilities. And to get that capability of understanding everything, it goes through the different forms, experiences, and then gains this consciousness. And this process is almost complete in human form, except for reincarnation, where it sets off all the garbage and then moves further in consciousness level to the subtle and the mental sphere. Hope what I understood is correct.
No, no, absolutely correct. Absolutely correct. Yeah. So, yeah, your summary was correct. Let's continue on. Though the soul in this state has gained full and complete consciousness, it is still not conscious of its subtle and mental bodies, nor of its unlimited self, biggest self, as one, big one, indivisible, eternal, and infinite. It is only fully conscious of its identity with human form and its varied aspects and experiences of the gross world. Consequently, the soul at this stage only fully gross conscious of the most first human gross form and still unconscious of the subtle and mental experiences in the gross world all of the impressions of the most last animal gross form disassociated or dropped by the consciousness of the soul in the latest stage of evolution of consciousness. When all of the impressions of the most last animal gross form are exhausted through incessant experiences by the most first human gross form, then it is but natural that this most first human form is dropped or disassociated from the consciousness of the soul. This experience by the fully conscious soul is universally accepted as the death of the human being. As explained previously, although the consciousness of the soul gets disassociated from the most first human form, yet it can never get disassociated from the unconscious associations of its subtle and mental bodies. The consciousness of the soul retains and experiences the impressions of the dropped or disassociated most first human form through its subtle and mental bodies. In order to exhaust these impressions, the consciousness of the soul must necessarily associate with a gross form, and therefore it associates itself with the next human form to exhaust and experience the residual impressions of the previous human form drop. In fact, this next human form is nothing but the consolidated mold of the past impressions retained of the previous body or human form that disassociated from the conscious soul. The association of consciousness of the soul with the next human form is universally accepted as the birth of a human being. So we understood death, we understood birth, and we understood the role of, again, re-emphasis on the role of the subtle body and the mental body alongside the physical form. Right? In short, in state 6 of God, as human soul in the state of reincarnation, the soul has developed full consciousness in human form, and therefore there is no need for any further evolution of the gross form. The evolution of gross consciousness thus comes to an end with the attainment of the human form. And to experience the impressions, sanskaras, cultivated in the human and the subhuman forms, the soul has to incarnate again and again into the human form. The kind of human forms with which the consciousness of the soul has to associate is determined by the nature of previous impressions, sanskaras, of virtue or vice, happiness or misery, and so forth. While experiencing the gross world, the soul identifies itself with the gross body, which is destructible, although the soul itself is eternal. In the subhuman stage, the evolutionary process of form and consciousness is involuntary, yet sustained and continuous, with no possibility of slipping down to the lower forms of evolution. In the human stage, which marks the end of the evolution of form and the attainment of full consciousness, the spiritual progress of man through the reincarnation and realization processes is voluntary and is also absolutely free from any danger whatsoever of slipping down to a subhuman state, except in flagrant misuse of the powers of the fourth plane. Once full consciousness is gained, it is gained forever and is never lost. And the evolution of consciousness is completed only when the consciousness of the soul associates itself with human form. Therefore, retrograde incarnation is an impossibility once the consciousness of the soul identifies itself with a human form. So, this summarizes one thing, which is you can never go to a lower form. But we always hear in the Puranic history, mythology about how you are punished to take a lower animal form. And my correlation is it could be linked to misuse of powers. So the person has already evolved and in the fourth plane and had misused the powers and hence is banished to a lower kingdom, right?
Yes, yes,
That's,
yes.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Continuing, with the development of full consciousness of the gross world in the human gross body, the soul simultaneously is associated with the fully developed subtle and mental bodies. But as long as consciousness is confined to the gross world, the consciousness of the soul cannot make use of its subtle and mental bodies directly. The soul becomes conscious of these bodies and experiences the corresponding impressions of these bodies through the corresponding spheres of the subtle and mental worlds only when full consciousness, which is conscious only of the gross at this stage, turns inwards towards itself, and the process of the involution of consciousness begins. This becomes possible only when the consciousness of the individualized soul becomes satiated with the incessant experiences of the varied and innumerable impressions of the material or gross life, and only when it has suffered oscillations between the opposites of pain and pleasure for what may seem interminable ages through the unfailing chain of births and deaths in the process of reincarnation. In the stage of evolution of consciousness, the winding process of impressions, sanskaras, is at work with a view to evolving consciousness, developing higher and higher types of gross forms. In the human stage, the fully evolved consciousness remains, but the grip of impressions, sanskaras, begins to loosen and thin out as a result of continuous jolts experienced by the consciousness of the soul through the seemingly unending chain of births and deaths in the reincarnation process. So, how would one summarize the reincarnation process? The opposites. So you experience all the opposites, and in the process, you slowly start loosening your connection to sanskaras. Right, the grip of uh, uh, impressions begins to loosen towards the end of the reincarnations, but it actually strengthens. Firstly, your association is with the last animal form, and then you go through all the opposites to experience multiple aspects as determined by your sanskaras, and that's quite a long time. So Baba says interminable ages, and the reason is it can take 8.4 million births. I mean 84 lakh births. Yeah. Okay.
In this juncture, I would like you to say, uh, tell about the number of births the soul has to undergo, not in the human form, but in any form as such.
6.5 crores total.
6.5 crores is that's what.
650 million. So 8.4 in the human form and 6.5 crore total.
And
So
one interesting point which comes up now with this is, as the human form is developing and also changing its different cycles of movement, there are so many animal forms still in uh, the cosmos available, and they are also going through this process. No, so
correct.
are new human forms emerging from the animals or not? This is a science question also. Say, if we say we came from the ape, and is it still happening? Some of the apes becoming human forms. And if so, that human form will go through a long time to take to the full consciousness and then development and getting rid of this garbage, baggage, and all that. So this is a new area which suddenly comes in the mind, and how do we identify if it is happening and all that process. Say there are so many different animal forms, like any animal or bird or worm or things like that.
Yeah. I got your question, and it's
Yes.
a very fair question. It's not a question of science; it's a question of statistics, right? So, yeah, you are now saying that there are 7 billion human souls,
Uh,
and the number of human souls is going on increasing. Number of animals is also increasing, and so what's going on here? So,
yes.
my theory, again, based on what Baba has said, is the in the universes that exist, the balance of heart and mind is designed to be available only on Earth, and hence Earth is destined to be the only place which allows you for getting to God realization. And hence, from the universes, souls head towards the Earth or come to Earth to go through this process and reach the human form and eventually reach realization. So, yes, the number is increasing and hopefully it will keep increasing. It's all driven by the cosmic numbers or cosmic statistics of number of drop souls in the universes. If That's my theory.
Okay.
So, so so it may still continue to go up, and it may go up or it may not. I mean, it's not it's overall a numbers game as driven by what is actually there as drop souls in the total universes.
Yes.
Yeah.
But
Okay.
I don't think science has evolved or dwelled into this sphere. One point at which I can say is, when we see a human form, you say you have gone through so many changes and over the period, and now you have become human. And this process has gone on for a long time. Now you are in reincarnation, and next moment is say the evolution. So can we spot out in scientific way the new emergence of human beings from the animal world? So this is, for a scientist, I am giving this question.
So if I understand and want to rephrase your question,
Eh,
there are a million births that happen, every wherever, right? So as we speak, there are births happening. So can as a student of science be able to tell which is a reincarnating soul and which is a soul that's coming from the animal form?
yes, yes.
Tough question. Tough question. I don't know how to answer that, and I
Okay.
don't know if science wants to answer it as well, because
Yes,
the birth does not have any indication to suggest other than in the mental body what it represents. So, if the mental body has animal instincts and the last animal forms impressions, then it is the first human form which is being attained. If it contains anything else, it's reincarnating. If or involuting, yes, involving consciousness, because both are in the human form. So it's very difficult to tell, but yeah, the it's all three are happening. So new births which are coming from animal form are happening, and so are reincarnating souls, and so are involving souls as well, right? So all three are happening in parallel as we speak, and I don't know if there are ways to tell.
yes,
Perfect masters, I'm sure, will be able to tell.
yes.
Okay, so I think we're just down to 10 odd minutes
Ah,
left. So I would stop here and start stage 7 next Sunday and use the time to hear what Sanjay ji wanted to share with the group.
yes, yes.
Sanjay ji, over to you.
Yeah, Jai Baba.
Jai Baba.
As I said a few times, I'm reading this book, Pukar's Diaries, and we are reading
Yes.
the year 1959. And during that period, Baba was in absolute silence, seclusion in Merazar, except for some correspondence. He was not meeting the general public, except a very few people were allowed to visit him. So this is just the background.
Sure.
And Pukar is there, Harry Canmore is there, and Harry Canmore was he was a practocapular. What do you call that? He used to work on Baba's
Chiropractor.
nerves.
Chiropractor. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, chiropractor. So
Yeah.
Baba had an accident in 1958, and he was here, and he was not. keeping too well, generally very feverish, and he was also he started a 40-day fast from 19th of September 1959. So this is the period I'm just giving a background. So
Sure.
Baba laughed and asked Harry, "Would you like to hear the sound of Pukar's stomach when it is struck like a drum?" So there's a fun going on, and suddenly Baba turns to a very serious discourse. Harry said, "I won't be pleased if it hurts Pukar." Baba said, "He likes it. He welcomes the chance." Harry said, "It is just possible that there might be something in his stomach that may create some trouble for him by striking it." Baba said, "No, that won't happen. Pukar is full of emptiness." Baba asked Francis, "What is the meaning of to be full of emptiness?" Francis said, "I don't understand it clearly." Baba asked Harry, "Do you understand it?" Harry said, "Thoughts, emotions, and desires, which are involved in worldly affairs, and the experiences gained through Maya, causing the accumulation of sanskaras. All the filth should be squeezed like a sponge and eliminated." Baba said, "Harry, what you have said is correct." Continuing, Baba said, "Once a Sadguru said to his disciple, Javed, become empty and naked." None could understand the meaning of it. Becoming completely empty does not mean removing your flesh and bones. Similarly, becoming naked does not mean to take off your clothes. To be fully empty means to get rid of your wants and desires. This concerns the heart. Getting rid of wants and desires means emptying them from your heart. The meaning of becoming naked means not caring for the opinion of others. Thus, it is concerned with the mind. So, becoming empty and naked means turning the mind and heart inside out. Speaking about Prophet Muhammad, Baba said, Muhammad was once addressing a crowd who, he said, were all blind, deaf, dumb and deaf. Dumb and deaf, yeah. He, he meant they did not know about God. Hence, whatever they saw was not real. Whatever they heard was not true, and whatever they said was not also not true. Thus, with eyes wide open, they were blind. Having ears, they were deaf. Having a mouth to speak, they were mute. Referring to the perfect master Baizar, Baba said, once Bayazid told one of his disciples to know God, become blind, dumb, and deaf. This statement is the opposite of what Muhammad said, but both have their own differences. Baba asked Harry, "What do you understand by this?" Harry said, "Not to be attached to worldly things, not to speak about them, not to listen, and not to look at them with attachment, for they are devoid of truth." Baba said, "That is correct. If you become blind, deaf, and dumb to the world, only then you can get God, thus keeping the power of seeing, hearing, and speaking. If you can become blind, deaf, and dumb to the world. Ego cannot attack you from any direction. By reaching that state, a jewel like Francis can never get irritated with Aloba." So, Aloba, this is just a fun Baba adds towards the end because Aloba was very irritating to Baba, and Baba used to rebuke him many times, and still he would not correct himself. Every time he'd promise, "I'll not break your orders," but still keep on doing this. So, this the last sentence reference. Jai Baba became deaf and dumb. Jai Baba.
Wow.
Empty,
Let's become
empty.
deaf.
Very
Let's
nice,
become
very
empty.
nice.
Let's become naked. Yes.
That's what the
Beautiful.
thing was. Jai Baba.
That's why some of the Sadhguru's literature, if you read, some of the sentences that they tell will not be able to understand at all unless we have this background. of what is nakedness, what is getting rid of things, how they explain all those concepts in a veiled way, or in a there is no other way, because the human say, race has the language which is full of attachment, full of association, so cannot explain the state of dissociation so clearly. So it has become
Yeah, it
some
also Mamaji, it is the deaf and dumb and blind is not reacting to what is happening around you, right?
yes,
So
of course.
that so we
You
say
can
I
respond
am
but
blind
not
to
react.
happening. Yeah, yeah,
That's
yeah.
why the term
Yes,
you
yes,
should
yes.
respond, not to react.
Right, right, right. Jai Baba.
Yeah. Beautiful. Thanks for sharing, Sanjay ji. And with that, we will end today's session. And before we wrap up, we can have a session for first, if everybody's okay. We can probably do a session on first for just because it's a holiday
Yeah,
and
yeah,
we
yeah.
can connect.
Set
Yeah.
it up, set it up. Not a problem. Yeah,
Yes,
yeah. We
Okay.
can
Done.
connect for 15, 20 minutes. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Let's do that. Let's do that.
Jai
Okay.
Baba.
Perfect.
Jai Baba. Jai Baba.
Jai Baba.
yes.
Thank
So,
you. Thank you. Thank
Jai
you.
please
Baba.
join. Yes.
Yeah.
Jai Baba.
Thank you.
Jai
Thank you.
Baba.
Thank
You
you.
can
Jai
make
Baba.
that
Bye.
announcement so that others who may would like to join that.
Missed. Yeah. Sure. Sure. Will do. Will do. Noted. Thank you. Thank you.
Ashok ji, Jai Baba. Especially to you. Jai
Jai
Baba.
Baba.
Jai Baba.
Jai Baba.
Jai
Jai Baba.
Samadhi.
Jai Baba.
Baba.